Welcome to the very first episode of Out of Bounds, where I talk about different topics going on in our society and things that are on my mind. I'm your host, Terry, and today I'm going to be talking about, should we have to apologize for being offensive? And so this is pretty much a podcast where I'm venturing out from my usual stuff with the sports and just kind of having a real discussion and, putting my thoughts out there. It's not really meant to make anybody agree with me. I'm not really debating anybody. It's just kind of my point of view and perspective. And I'm sure people will be happy to share theirs. So, you're talking about this topic today, which is very timely in the society the last maybe 5 or so years, where the outrage and being offended is very common. And I don't mean to belittle or demean anybody's feelings, but to say that everybody is genuinely outraged, I would say more than likely isn't true, because we are exposed to more things with technology, but with that also comes other issues. But either way, we are in a culture where people feel that they are offended by a lot of things. And so we have to talk about what that means, because right now society kind of dictates, especially through internet culture, that if I'm offended, then you're in the wrong and you shouldn't be able to say what you said. You should have to apologize, or, you should lose something in order to make me feel better. And so that is what we see happen transactionally a lot of times with high profile things. There's many things that happen every day that we don't talk about, but when we're talking about celebrities or something that goes viral, then that's what we talk about. So should we have to be apologetic if we're offensive to someone? And I think this goes back to one of the things that's big to me is comedy, and comedians being able to have the free space to say what they want to say. And even then from there, that tracks back to this whole discussion about freedom of speech. And so basically, you have the right to say what you want to say. You don't have the right to dictate how people feel about it. And so if people react a certain way or feel a certain way, you're not protected from that. Or if you do something or say something that's illegal, you're not protected from the consequences of that. So then you get into comedy, where this is this safe space where we're joking and we can say different things. And I would say that comedy is one of the biggest things to our society as a whole. Just the concept that we can all come together and laugh at ourselves, laugh at other different stereotypes, but mainly laugh at kind of tragedies, because, they say, with all jokes, there's some truth. And then they say some of the best, comedians are the ones that are depressed or, have a lot of pain. You think about Kevin Hart's special, Laugh at My Pain. And so as somebody that has watched and studied comedy a lot, I know that in the soul of comedy is the truth, and in the soul of comedy is the pain, and laughing at it is one way that we can be cathartic and work through all those issues. And so we already see that in comedy we're losing that. So you don't have to look far to see the Kevin Hart situation with the Oscars. And talking about, well, he should have to apologize for jokes that he said years ago. And so I think people really focus on that idea of how long ago it was, because the narrative is always he can change, or, this person can change, and we got to give him the pass. And while I agree with that to an extent, I think that misses the larger point. And oftentimes in these discussions, we miss the larger point. I think the larger point is that he can feel the way he feels. Why should he have to apologize for that? And so if you don't like that joke, then okay. Because guess what? You are going to laugh at a joke that 100% guaranteed there's somebody in the world that is offended by that joke. And so that's when we get into this question of, who gets to choose what is funny? Do we get to say the stuff I laugh at is okay, but the stuff you laugh at is not okay? And how do we pick that? And so that goes to a quote from one of the famous comedians that said, either we could joke about everything or we can joke about nothing. And that is very true. And you look at throughout the history of comedy, and we talk about some of just the most inhumane or terrible things people talk about, but that's why comedy is so hard. If you talk about making movies and things like that, one of the hardest things to do is to make a good comedy. To make something that is funny and enjoyable to multiple people is hard. And, you know, even though there's so many comics out there, there's so many stand-ups on Netflix now, it's not easy to be a good or great comedian, because you have to take tough material and make it into a package that is going to be digestible and funny to the audience. So we're not saying that these things aren't horrible, but at the same time, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to say them, whether we're joking or if that's what we really feel. And so again, back to the Kevin Hart situation, where if he's being honest about how he feels about homophobia and about homosexual and LGBTQ and all that, when is that line where we have to say, okay, you have to apologize, if that's what you honestly feel? And I think in this episode, I keep pulling comedy because it helps frame it. I think of Michael Shea and his stand-up, Michael Shea Matters on Netflix, where he talks about his interaction with his transgender friend and saying that, you know, you can't say tranny, or that I don't want you to say tranny and this and that. And so it was a very real discussion, because to say, you know, what Michael said, basically, how can I ever know and grow if I'm not allowed to make a mistake, or if I'm not allowed to say what I actually feel? Because, and that's the thing, is like these actions right now, people want that to define you. You're just an evil person because you said that. And it's not the case. A lot of times it comes from places of ignorance, and we know that. And there was a time where people fought to go out and change the ignorance of people. And we're in the instant gratification society now, where that's too slow. And so take an example from the new movie Green Book with Mahershala Ali, where he it's based off the real story, where this real elite top-notch musician and pianist that's black chose to go through the South because they understood that for people to do better, they have to know better. And for them to know better, you got to show them better. And so having the courage to go out there and show them something different and to fight that ignorance, because a lot of the times it's just not born of, I'm just hateful. It's born from something. And so for Michael Shea to say that to their transgender friend, from Kevin Hart to make the jokes and say what he feels about, you know, gay people and gay men. And again, in the context of jokes, we get it, but even bigger than that, saying what you actually think. Now, we're not talking about in a hurtful way or trying to hurt you, but just actually saying what you think and then growing from that. And maybe you don't grow. Maybe you have a conversation, people present their side, and maybe you still feel the way you feel. Maybe it's just uncomfortable. And that's the one thing people got to realize in the politically correct society, is that it's okay not to like everything. There are so many people, quote unquote, wrapped up in social justice that act as if they like everything. And I talked to people before where you got to realize that's just not true. Just because you're in an oppressed group, or you're in a group that, you know, identifies with a social justice movement, doesn't mean you're for everybody. I have met plenty of marginalized and minoritized people that are intolerant of other, you know, marginalized people. And so we have to get over that. What the focus should not be you telling me, okay, I support and I love and I'm okay with all of this. I think the focus should be, I understand as a human what, how you feel, and I'm going to show you human decency and respect. And that's really all we can ask for. But right now we're asking people to take a stand. Denounce homophobia. Kevin Hart, apologize for this. Say that show us that you're on this side. And I don't think that's really fair. I think that it's okay to, as long as you go through the proper channels of discussion and listening and talking with people, to come to the conclusion that it's just uncomfortable for me, whether you find out the reasons why or not, that's your conclusion. But also it's uncomfortable for me. It's not my lifestyle, but I'm still going to respect your choice. I'm still going to treat you with decency. That's one thing. Now, is telling jokes about somebody part of that? I don't think so. I think, again, we gotta be able to make fun of everything, or we can't make fun of anything. And I didn't pull this up, but there's other people within that same community that support Kevin Hart. There's a very loud, very vocal minority online that can amplify their voice that way. But there's plenty of people that in the same community that still support Kevin Hart and said that that's okay. And I won't read the entire excerpt, but there was one person, a young woman on a different show that I was watching, and she basically said that I don't like what these people did because we are a strong community. And I want people to know that our community is not above being laughed at and being joked about. And so I think that's very important, because people talk so much about bullying and teasing and, all these negative things that somehow comedy's wrapped up into it. Well, we shouldn't, do that. We should just be praising everybody and only positive vibes. And I think when you exclude yourself from that societal circle where we can laugh at you and then you laugh at us, then you lose understanding of each other and it just becomes fear. You had the comedian D.L. Hughley say that the gay community are acting like bullies. Now, again, that's a blanket statement because there's a vocal minority speaking for them, when the truth is it's not everybody in the community. But I would say a lot of internet communities, period, are becoming bullies. And I do agree with that. And so to bring it back to the conversation of should we have to apologize to be offensive? Being offended is subjective. And so that means that anybody can be offended by anything. So potentially everything is offensive. So you can come up to me and say, "Good morning, Terry," and I can be offended by that. For whatever reasons I have, I can say that really offends me that you told me good morning. And whether it's logical to you or not, you can't tell me how I feel. If you're respecting me, of course, you're respecting my right to feel and my right to react, then you can't tell me I'm wrong because it's subjective. Subjective means there is no measurable proof of it. So you can't factually prove that I'm wrong. So you have to take my word. I'm offended. Okay, well then, in that case, where does that line stop? Does that mean, okay, now I can't say good morning anymore to anybody? I just have to remember not to say good morning to you? Do I have to, change up the way I greet people? Or do I have to say I'm sorry? And so where does the line stop if being offended is subjective? And to that, I would say it goes back to intention. And I won't get too spiritual or religious in this episode, at least, but I would say one of the things that I feel looking at a lot of issues in society is that people have to realize you can't determine the intentions of somebody's heart or their mind. Nobody on earth can do that. And so a lot of the times we are assuming, we are guessing, and we are telling people what they're trying to do. And so I think the intention is important because that is what really matters to me. If I was intending to greet you as a fellow human, to show you, to be cordial. And I was trying to show you, good human interaction. And I used the language, or I, transmitted that in a way that came out offensive to you. Does that now change who I am? And does that change what I was trying to say? To me, the answer is no. And so in that, if you felt offended, it was not my intention. And so for me to say I apologize, that is almost basically affirming that I was intending to offend you. Now to say I apologize, I didn't mean to offend you, for some people that's enough. That wasn't my intention. I apologize, that wasn't my intention. I just want to greet you. How would you like to be greeted? And some people can move on and be okay with that. Some people, no, the act is the damning part. The fact that you did it is the problem. And so to me, I don't think that you have to always apologize for being offensive. Are there moments you should apologize for being offensive? I would say the only things I think of is when you are intentionally looking to harm someone. When you are intentionally being offensive. Now, I think in those moments when you are intentionally being offensive to offend somebody, to harm them, to cause harm, I don't think you care about apologizing. But those are the moments that I would say, because other than that, when we're talking about, conversation, when we're talking about, having comedy, when we're talking about, I don't know, whatever it is, somebody could say, oh, I was watching this Republican, channel or, podcast the other day, and someone's, wow, I'm really offended. I'm really triggered or upset by the Republican Party and what they stand for. That's offensive to me that you would watch that. In that case, that's something that, no, don't apologize, because I wasn't doing that to offend you. And even if it is offensive to you, that's something I believe in. So there is no, we should sacrifice what we feel, what we truly feel, and what we believe in or what we enjoy just to appease other people. That's being politically correct. There's a difference between learning something and, trying to maybe change your language around, because language is very important, I believe, and things of that nature. But I don't think you change who you are or, what you like to appease people. And so in a world, in society now where so many people are quote unquote triggered and offended by different things, and they demand apologies. Again, that's not going to change what I think. I can say something homophobic and you tell me I can't host the Oscars, and then I apologize for it. That doesn't change that I'm still a human being with influence in this world that has those thoughts and feelings. And the fact that people just want an apology and they just move on shows me that it's not sincere. There's a lot of people that want more than that, of course, but for the vast majority, someone goes out, says I'm sorry, and then we all move on. Because they just want you to be defeated in the public eye. They want you to come out and say that you are wrong and that they are right. They want to feel validated and being offended. And I don't believe that we should have to appease to that in most situations. Again, the only ones I think of are the times when you're intentionally trying to offend and trigger somebody with ignorant statements and what have you. And so I just feel like we have to have a bigger picture than that. Now, again, we'll never know what someone's true intentions are, but even if it's something ugly, if it's something ugly and offensive that is truly, I wouldn't say factual, but it's truly, out of ignorancy, sometimes you have to realize that maybe that person is just coming from a mindset where they don't know. And again, it isn't always pure hate, and we don't know the intentions of people. So we get taught things by the media. We get taught things growing up, and it's just like, you're a racist, you're a racist, you're a racist. Whatever it is, you're transphobic, you're homophobic, You're a misogynist, you're anti-male, and we slap these labels on people. We define them as those labels because we don't really know what the intention is. So we only can make up our own scenario. It has to be this. They have to be a bad person. That's the only way that it makes sense, because as humans, we have to put complex data into small things that are simple for us. And that's why we have a society now that loves things to be black and white, 0, 100, thumbs up, thumbs down. We love the extremes because it's simple, and life is a lot more complicated than that. So I'm gonna end that there. But I would love everybody to go down the comment section, kind of tell me what you think about the topic. Should you ever have to apologize for being offensive? Share it around, get the convo started. Please thumbs up and subscribe. Gonna start kicking this channel off and having some good discussion, hopefully. And yeah, till next time.